You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
Feel influenced.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influenced.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't have any playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country.
Well, this sit-down was one for the history books. If you thought this would be a straightforward diplomatic discussion, think again. What unfolded was anything but friendly. Zelensky entered the meeting aiming to secure U.S. support for Ukraine, but things quickly got complicated. Trump has been skeptical about aiding Ukraine from the beginning, calling the war Europe's problem, questioning why the U.S. is footing the bill, and even suggesting Ukraine should negotiate a ceasefire with Russia. So when Zelensky sat down with the U.S. president expecting reassurance, he got the exact opposite. Trump wasted no time putting Zelensky on the spot, and then things escalated fast. Trump gave him a reality check that left him speechless.
You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough. But you're never going to get a deal that way, so that's the way.
All right, so Zelensky is doing everything he can to remind the world why Ukraine needs American support. He speaks about democracy, the fight against Russia, and how Ukraine is holding the line so others don't have to. For a moment, it seems like Trump is just letting him talk. But then, the tone shifts. JG Vance throws out a pointed question. Why does it seem like you're not grateful for what we've already given you? Zelensky pauses, carefully choosing his words. He knows an aggressive response could cost Ukraine future aid. Instead, he fires back with a question of his own. Have you ever been to Ukraine? The room goes silent. Reporters take notes, cameras zoom in. It's a heavy question, his way of saying, you're judging from a distance, but do you actually understand what my country is going through? Vance starts to respond, but before he can, Trump takes over.
You have to be thankful. You don't have the cards. You're buried there. Your people are dying. You're running low on soldiers. Listen, you're running low on soldiers. It would be a damn good thing. And then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I want this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you'd take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop quitting.
Zelensky tries to steer the conversation back to Ukraine's needs. He warns Trump that cutting off U.S. support will have serious consequences down the line. Essentially, he's saying, if you stop helping us, you'll regret it when Russia pushes further. But Trump doesn't like being told what's going to happen. His expression hardens and his voice sharpens. Then he snaps, don't tell us how we're going to feel. Just like that, the entire mood changes. Trump isn't just disagreeing, he's shutting Zelensky down. He accuses him of acting entitled, of treating the U.S. like an ATM that endlessly hands out cash. Then he drops a bombshell. Ukraine is dragging America toward World War II. At this point, Zelensky looks completely caught off guard. He's clearly not used to this level of direct confrontation, especially not on camera. But Trump is just getting started.
The problem is, I've empowered you to be a tough guy. And I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very brave. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing.
Then, Trump says out loud what critics have been whispering. Ukraine isn't making as much progress as they claim. The war is dragging on, and maybe, just maybe, Ukraine isn't in a position to make demands anymore. And then, Trump lays down an ultimatum. Either you make a deal, or we're out. Zelensky opens his mouth like he's about to respond. But Trump raises a hand, shakes his head, and bluntly shuts him down. You've talked enough. The atmosphere shifts instantly. Zelensky just took a major public humiliation, and there's no way to spin it. Reporters are murmuring, cameras are still rolling, and his team looks frozen. What can you even say after that? But here's where it gets worse. This wasn't just a disastrous meeting. A major announcement was supposed to follow, a deal between the US and Ukraine over rare minerals, a resource that could strengthen Ukraine's economy, deepen ties with the West, and, most importantly, support its soldiers. Well, that deal is now unofficially dead. No signatures, no handshake, nothing. And that's a huge deal because this wasn't just another trade agreement. It was meant to signal that Ukraine still had strong US backing. Instead, Zelensky leaves the White House empty-handed. No money, no resources, and a whole lot of uncertainty about the future. Normally, after high-profile meetings like this, leaders put on a show, at least a handshake or a forced smile for the cameras. Not this time. Zelensky gets up and walks out, no hesitation. Reporters shout questions, hoping for a reaction, but he doesn't stop. He heads straight to his car, no looking back.
Mr. President, is there no deal? Mr. President, can you tell us what happened? Is the deal off? President Zelensky, can you tell us what happened?
Did you sign the deal? He's on the phone.
While Ukraine scrambles to process the fallout, you know who's celebrating? The Kremlin. Within hours, Russian state media jumps on this story, broadcasting clips of Trump's takedown and applauding him for putting Zelensky in his place. One Russian official even goes on TV and says, finally, America has a leader who understands reality. Yeah, they're evening this up. But Trump didn't stop at the meeting because that's not his style. As soon as he left the White House, he went straight to Truth Social to keep the momentum going. His first post, a full-on attack. He calls Zelensky a dictator without elections, taking aim at Ukraine's delayed elections due to the war. Then he doubles down, saying Ukraine should be grateful for U.S. aid and calling Zelensky desperate and reckless. Later that night, Trump takes the stage in Miami at a packed event, and you already know he's not letting this go. Right there, in front of thousands of supporters, he delivers another blow. Zelensky better move fast. He's not going to have a country left. And let's pause on that for a second. That's not just a random insult. That's a warning. Trump is basically telling Zelensky, make a ceasefire deal with Russia or Ukraine is finished. That is not something you hear from a U.S. leader every day. So where does this leave Ukraine? Because Trump didn't just scold Zelensky. He made it clear. No deal, no money, no support. And that's a massive statement. For years, Ukraine has depended on U.S. military aid to hold the line against Russia. Now that support is completely off the table. No weapons, no financial assistance, no guarantees. The pressure now shifts to Europe. If the U.S. pulls back, Ukraine will need serious help from its European allies. But can they afford it? Some European leaders are already holding emergency meetings, scrambling to figure out how to fill the gap. But let's be real, without U.S. military and economic backing, this war just became much harder for Ukraine. Some European nations, Germany, France, the UK, have been sending aid, but can they sustain it without U.S. involvement? And what happens when their citizens start asking why their tax dollars are funding a war America just walked away from? And here's the bigger question. What is Trump's endgame? Is this just tough talk to push Ukraine into peace talks, or is he actually shifting U.S. policy toward a more pro-Russia stance? Let's not forget, Trump has claimed before that he could end this war in 24 hours. So is this part of his strategy? Cut off Ukraine, force them to negotiate with Russia, and then take credit for bringing peace? Or is there something else going on, perhaps reshaping U.S. foreign policy in a way that benefits Russia? One thing is certain. This was a game-changing moment in politics. Zelensky just got a brutal wake-up call, and the whole world is watching to see what happens next. But what do you think? Is Trump making the right move by cutting off Ukraine, or is this going to backfire in a major way? Leave your thoughts in the comments and follow this channel for more updates.